Hello. Today is March 1st. That means that it is a new month. That means that the ranked duels rankings reset and people are lower than they previously were at the end of last month, and a brand new chance to start over here. So what I want to do is talk about a few decks actually that I'm going to be using this month. If you've been watching my latest videos, I've only used the Mekk-Knights deck. I really enjoy it. It is a tier 1 deck, so obviously like you have an advantage at times over players that are playing rogue decks or things like that. But I play to win the game. You know, I don't apologize for that, and I'm going to use strong decks mainly. But with that being said, the big change coming is the Mekk-Knights deck, in addition to others, is being nerfed. The Mekk-Knights deck, the Go-Key deck, the Xyz Galaxy deck, and also the Mermail deck are getting hit pretty hard, and rightfully so. I think this deck is incredibly powerful if you can get things rolling, which is sometimes the challenge. I'll talk a little bit about more about that in a minute. But when you get rolling, it's very hard to be stopped, and it's clear the advantage that you can gain from that. Now, the big changes that are coming. Blue Sky, and I'll click through these, and Memory are being changed to Limited 3. As you can see, I currently have 5 of these in my deck, so moving to 3 is going to be tough. Now, that is on top of what is already Limited 3 in the deck. So I changed the deck a little bit at the conclusion of last month to have 1 Ice Dragon's Prison in. Crackdown was already there, Evac was already there, and the other change I made, which is adding in a Warning Point, because this card has really been growing on me. The only other change, and this isn't affected by the ban list, is with the new main box that has come out on March 1st, I have added in Crusadia Equimax. I had a Borolo Dragon in there. I've changed it to here, thinking this might be just a little bit easier, a little more accessible for the time being. But all of that said, this deck is getting nerfed. It needs to be done. I'm not upset about it, but part of my plan anyway was to explore a few more decks and get really comfortable. I think this deck, as much as it is very powerful, it is also very technical in learning the different combinations and when to play what card versus another one, and even your preferences of deck setup of what you're going to have in there, and if you want to change a Book of Moon for a different trap, or how many memories, and I have 2 vanilla Mekk-Knights, other people prefer 1, or anything like that. Maybe having 3 Iblis. There's a lot of preference that's not like objectively right or wrong as to your playstyle and all of those type of things. So I think this takes a lot of practice to get good with, and I think that having 2, maybe 3 decks that you're really, really confident with is better than just trying to play a little bit of everything. At the end of the day, you should play decks that you enjoy, or else, what the heck are you playing for if you're not having fun? But it does take time to get really good, so if you spread yourself too thin across many decks, you're just not going to get comfortable enough to play at a really high level, which, if that's your goal, then that's definitely my recommendation. And also, even if this nerf didn't happen, or the ban list kind of hit, I was going to open up a bit to other decks and really start to get comfortable there. This is the first one since I've come back to playing in late December that I've, gotten up to speed with. But I wasn't pleased with the performance I had in the last KC Cup. In addition to having some personal things going on, the deck wasn't as consistent enough first. When I was forced to go first, the deck is not overly consistent. Ibli is great for that, and if you can draw an Ibli, you can get a card in the column. You can also use the vanilla monster to get a Link Discipline, an Imduk on the field, and then build off the column from there. But if you don't have one of those 2 cards in your opening hand, you're kind of just then reacting to what your opponent is doing. You can have a memory down, you can have some of the other traps, but if they can pick off your back row and things like that, you're either going to take a life points hit, possibly forced to use a memory to block an attack instead of being able to just use a purple and draw another card that way. At the end of the day, you're being reactive, you're not getting ahead of the game. And, in theory, you're going first about 50% of the time. So if that consistency factor is in question 50% of the time, it's just not as good of a deck as you'd want it to be, which has always, at least for me, been the challenge with this deck. Now, there were other decks that aren't even on the tier list if you look at Duel Links meta that placed top 10 in the KC Cup in February 2023. So, I'm going to look around those. I'm going to put videos together on them and kind of what works, what doesn't, the strengths, weaknesses, and all of that. But I wanted to put this quick update together to talk about Mekk-Knights, what to expect from them moving forward, and, you know, are they still going to be viable? So that's the next thing I want to look at is this is obviously pre-ban list, which is going to be implemented on March 10th. I'm going to go back here and I'm going to look at another version. So this one is going to be kind of limited list approved. So the big changes are we're going to have 1 blue, 2 memories, and then those traps that are limited 3 are no longer going to be in the deck. So how do we replace those? I'm going to add a second warning point when I get it, but right now it's 2 bottomless trap holes. The differences are not drastic. The deck is a little bit smaller now, so we had, I think, 23 or 24 with the last version. This one is down to 20, so maybe a little more consistent with drawing some of the cards we're looking for. But this is ban list approved. I don't think it's a drastically different deck. Your core and your engine are still there. You can still get the Mekk-Knights flowing very well, and usually you only end up using 1 blue sky, and a lot of the time that's coming off either a memory, which we still have 2 of, or coming off of a purple. Actually, they're coming off of a purple, but you can use the memory to get the purple, I should say. So I think a lot of those consistency factors are still really in place. Now this will have the same challenges I was just mentioning. If you're going first, you know, it's not any better with these things. And the traps, you know, arguably are a little bit weaker, so if you don't get the right cards in the field that first turn, you're also not going to have the traps to totally defend you. Again, warning point has been growing on me. Having a second one is going to be really, really helpful too. And maybe I'll drop the MST or one of the Book of Moons to accommodate, or maybe I'll just have 21 cards. Either way, this is, you know, my gut reaction to what it will be like after the ban list, and you could easily get to King of Games using this. Is it going to be, you know, a top 10 deck in the next KC Cup? Wait and see. I'd probably argue no. I think maybe one person before maybe made top 10 with, you know, pre-ban list version. But, you know, if you like playing this deck, I'll probably play it for a little bit longer and I'll test out the new version. But as I mentioned, I'll be playing other decks too. You guys will see those. I'll do walkthroughs. So hopefully this has been helpful, and this is the state of the Mekk-Knight decks going into before and after the ban list in March 2023.